joy to be here because holy is all around us, if only we're so willing to see. A couple of months ago, my younger son and I cozied up on the overstuffed marigold couch in the basement for pizza and a movie. In our house, we rotate between who gets to pick the Saturday night movie, and when it's my turn, I tend to believe in a full indoctrination of the 80s and 90s classics that I grew up on. Harry and the Hendersons. Yes, please. The Muppets. Adventures in Babysitting. Got the babysitting babies. Splash with Daryl Hannah. The list goes on. That night, I was eager to cue up a film that had been a soundtrack of my teenage years, the 1992 classic, Sister Act. Thank you. I love this place. There we sat, gooey cheese dribbling down our chins, napkins passing between us, mostly from me to him. He bobbed his head to the hallowed holy beats of one of Hollywood's most iconic church choirs. I belted out the lyrics to each and every last song as if I too stood on the stage in a black and white habit. I will follow him in wherever he may go, and near him I always will be. I'm looking to the choir like for nothing can keep me away. He is my destiny. I don't actually have the rest written down, but we can sing it after the fact. We also didn't practice beforehand, so this is on me, not them. But then the unexpected happened. As I sang along to a song I'd sung 1,000 times before, my throat choked up. Tears started welling in the corners of my eyes and soon began running down my cheeks. Whoopi Goldberg got me. But also, maybe so did a message that speaks to a wholehearted kind of devotion I never questioned as a child or even really as a teenager, but constantly find myself wondering about now. In this week's gospel reading, a similar refrain of following him wherever he may go runs throughout the narrative. But what does following Jesus really mean? What hints can we glean from the interactions in these 11 verses about what it means to live and lean into this radical, often upside down way of love, of walking in love today? What does it mean to believe that holy is all around us if only we are so willing to see? Luke 9 starts with a hint that things are soon coming to a close. The day, for Jesus at least, the days of his pending death are drawing near, and he's got his sights set on Jerusalem. So much so that a village of Samaritans refuses to receive him. James and John, they're kind of my favorites in this passage, offer to send down, to rain down a little bit of fire from heaven on his behalf. Because who doesn't yearn to rain down a little bit of fire on the haters sometimes? But Jesus turns and criticizes them instead. However, this does not just deter the disciples and Jesus in the least. Soon after, they go to another village where another series of follow me encounters occur between Jesus and relative strangers. I will follow you wherever you go, the person says. Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head, Jesus replies, leading preachers across theological spectrums to turn this into a sermon about homelessness. A sermon, mind you, that we Oaklanders would probably find rather applicable today. Follow me, Jesus says to a second person in a second encounter. Lord, first let me go and bury my father, the person replies. This a reasonable response, I'd say, given the circumstances of a loved one's death. But to this, Jesus says, let the dead bury their own dead. But as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God. Finally, the third person pipes up and makes an offer I'd have a hard time refusing were I the Christ. I will follow you, Lord, but let me never say farewell to those at my home. Jesus apparently feels differently. He replies, no one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. How are we supposed to win in this situation? It's like the "I will follow him" chorus. Could the choir just sing one line? Plays on repeat in the background. And Jesus stands there like a toddler. He cups his hands over his ears and shakes his head and closes his eyes and just keeps saying no, 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 over and over again. As one commentator writes, Jesus is a rather rotten salesman in this scene. It's like he's trying to sell rejection and forbearance, inconvenience and hardship, disruption and disorientation, intensity and urgency. Those he interacts with don't want anything to do with it, for good reason. And he refuses to budge even an inch. However, if we pause from the gospel account and look instead at the other three readings for a moment, something else is present. In these texts, we see a refrain of crying out to God, of wondering and being desirous of the wild ways of God. Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah? Where is he? Elisha cries out as he strikes the water after Elijah has ascended up into heaven in a big old whirlwind. And when Elisha strikes the water a second time, the water parts to one side and then to the other, allowing Elisha to cross over. Maybe God is there. I cry aloud to God, that God may hear me, the psalmist utters, later declaring that your way was through the sea, your path through the mighty waters, even if the footprints were unseen. Because maybe God was there. You were called to freedom, Paul writes to the church at Galatia, so do not use your freedom as an opportunity for self-indulgence, but through love become enslaved to one another. After all, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, generosity, kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Because maybe God is here too. Might there also be a refrain of crying out to God, of wondering and being desirous of the wild ways of God in the Lucan account as well? How might we see the God present in that text, wriggling in between declarations of call and response that don't feel so easily understood in the moment? Of Luke 9, one commentator writes the following: how often do we humans simply miss the point? Following Jesus may not, almost always will not, include space and time to check in on other matters such as family or social expectations, or allow for comforts along the way, or even set up the righteous and deserved punishment of his or our enemies. Following Jesus is not something to do later. It's something to do now. Following Jesus means deprioritizing our personal hopes, letting go of our irritations, and moving past our perceived limitations. What does it then mean to follow Jesus now? It means crying out to God when a door has been opened for a majority of states to at least temporarily enforce the president's executive order ending birthright citizenship. Crying out to God. What does it mean now? It means that when hundreds of millions of acres of protected lands are no longer supported for purposes of restoration and conservation, but are instead intended for consumption. The list goes on. But it also means wondering and being found desirous of the wild ways of God right here, right now. It means not putting off Jesus until we're good and ready for it, but it means embracing Jesus in the now, because maybe God really is here too. As one writer says, if our to-do lists end with Jesus instead of beginning with Jesus, we'll never get to Jesus at all. If we keep glancing over our shoulders in nostalgia, instead of fixing our eyes on what lies ahead, we'll never step onto the road that leads to Jerusalem. Spiritual fitness requires a sense of urgency and passion, a sense of the sacred, irreplaceable value of right now. As it goes, whether we're scrunched up next to a loved one, in a pew belting out a favorite old hymn, or snuggled up next to our 10, almost 11-year-old, on the marigold couch in the basement watching an early 90s classic, God bless it, we notice how deep calls to deep within our restless souls. We see how God is in this place, how Jesus is present to us, calling us and begging us act on following him right now, even in this moment. After all, holy is all around us, if only we're willing to see it. Amen.